evening. 2004. I remember being startled by the phone ringing. It was our landline, and we never get calls on our landline. What was even more startling is that it was pitch black. I was pregnant and clumsily trying to find the phone. And I eventually did. And it was my mother on the other line. And she was saying, Brandy, he's gone. He's gone. What? What is she talking about? My father got on the phone. He said, well, Ted, that's my brother, my baby brother. He said, Ted passed. Ted was in a apartment where there's a fire, and he passed of smoke inhalation. And I was struggling because I had just seen Ted earlier in the day. Like we normally do in the fall, we go to the football park and we hang out, and I seen Ted earlier that day. He gave me his Tupac nod. You know, I did it, I kept doing my thing. But I regretted not pausing and taking time to interact with them and touch them. And that hit our family hard. We struggled through it, some of us more than others, but we kept moving. I remember driving southbound on Breton Street, and I had my two little boys in the back seat. And again, the phone rang, and my mom again came over the speakerphone, the Bluetooth. She said, Brandy, something is wrong with your father. Something's wrong with your father. Come back, come back. So I drove back, and I ended up going to one of the hospitals, and I actually remember sitting in the front seat of one of the paramedic units as we were transferring my father from one hospital to the other because he was going to be on the critical care unit. And I remember when he was in the hospital, folks from the community, family and friends, coming to visit and pay their respect. And I remember folks telling all these great stories about the fight in my father because he was a Golden Glove boxer. And they were talking about how he is really channeling his strength and his fight in this fight for his life. And I remember thinking, looking around the room like, wow, my father was really loved. All these people in the room, while they gave birth to 5 kids, they were community parents for so many more to their beloved community. I think it was a course of 2 to 3 weeks, and my father passed. That really rocked the core of our family, as you can imagine. And I remember wondering, how are we going to do this? You know, put one foot in front of the other, one day at a time, sometimes second by second. And I remember thinking, okay, we're doing it. You know, we've been kicked, but we are making strides in healing. And how I knew is because we could still come together, we could laugh, we could cry, and we could even argue. That's when you really know. We could still argue. And I remember in my rigid ways, my mom would often respond to me, and you have to know my mom, short, feisty, don't tell her what to do, that kind of mom. She would say, Brandy, when I'm being rigid, Brandy, you just keep on living. You just keep on living. I'm like, okay, Mom, all right, whatever. But that's what we all were trying to do. So my dad passed in 2010. In 2013, I remember talking to my boys about our annual trip. We always go to either Schaumburg, Illinois, or Chicago. They love Legoland. And they were bothering me, I'll say, about, when is our next trip? When are we leaving? And I said, okay. Usually one of the grandmas come with us. And so I had invited my mom to come along with us. And she was trying to back out at the last minute, and I did not quite get it. I didn't get it. What I did get is that she seemed to have this enduring cough. And I told you earlier, you don't tell Jeanette Lovelady what to do. We tried anyway. I'm the oldest girl. I was like, Ma, you need to go to the doctor and get that checked out. You need to go to the doctor and get that checked out. She would remind me of my father and the fight in him. She would remind me of courage. And one of the stories that she told me is, do you remember when you were younger, you went to Congress, you were a kindergartner, and you were so brave. What? She said, yeah, let me give you an example. Do you remember when you told your dad, Dad, you are not walking me to school today, and I want to do my own hair? My dad had this way of, my mom worked early in the morning, so she wasn't there. My dad would have to get us off to school. My mom would put my hair up in a ponytail, and my dad did this massage thing that was so messed up, so messed up. But I could feel his hand on my head, so I appreciate that today. But she was talking about, yeah, you decided to walk to school, and your dad followed you in a yellow van. Do you remember that? Yeah, I do remember that. I do remember that. So she would tell stories. Eventually, what I found out is she was trying to tell us that the doctor was so adamant about her going to the doctor and her not wanting to go on our trips because she was sick. And I remember going to the doctor's office with her and her beaming. I'm like, okay, but why are we here? You're beaming, you're happy, you're joyous. That's cool, but what's really going on? So we later found out that she had lung cancer and spine cancer. And we found out that it was stage 4. What I remember her then saying, going back to the story of Brave and how she was setting me up without my knowing, trying to help me and empower me and make me remember my strength, is because she said, you are strong. And what I'm about to tell you, people will not like it. But because you're strong, I know you will carry it out. And what she was essentially saying is, even in the face of all these trials and even cancer, I am going to choose to live my life boldly, courageously in the way that I want to live it. No one will determine for me, or nothing will determine for me. That is hard to hear. That's hard to grapple with. And so I remember continuing to share with my family. We first found out around July. We worked with hospice in August. I remember sitting with my mom. I remember her telling different stories again about courage and strength. I remember the hospice workers talking about, your mother is so strong. She is still continuing to fight and so clear about what she wants and how she won't compromise her life, that she's going to live it her way to the very end. One of the last things that my mom said to me, she said, Brandy, thank you for being a good daughter. And she said, remember, you just keep on living. My failure was that I had forgotten how precious life is and how every day is a gift. And I had forgotten how my mom and my dad and brother were so courageous and bold in the face of whatever came to them.